Hello everyone, my name is Rachel Dares. On behalf of the VBS TV network, we welcome you, especially young Vietnamese in Vietnam, in the U.S. and in every part of the world, to watch this program. We not only offer the latest in economic and business news of Vietnam, the U.S. and across the globe, but also help you to understand English and learn it with an American accent. Since we are an independent TV network, our reports are independent, true, and accurate. Following are today's U.S. headlines. Wall Street's longest winning streak since January. Consumers still not in a buying mood. Tech stocks initiated a rally extending Wall Street's gains into a third straight session, driving stocks up. The nuclear deal between Iran and the six world powers and weak retail sales, an indication the economy may be slowing down. Sam Stovall, U.S. equity strategist of S&P Capital IQ, have this to say.
Well, I think it's a continuation of the optimism that investors have re-embraced after the Iran deal and the Greek deal, but also seeing that retail sales numbers came in weaker than expected. I think now investors are feeling good that they don't have to expect a rate hike in September.
Leading the S&P 500 higher, Micron Technology. Sources say the Chinese conglomerate Tsinghua Unigroup is attempting to make a $23 billion bid for the chip producer. Twitter shares advance higher on an alleged Bloomberg report about a takeover offer, but they gave back some of their gains when that turned out to be a fake report. Big U.S. banks kicked off earnings session. Cost cuts aided J.P. Morgan Chase lift profit, but costs grew at Wells Fargo, pushing profit down for the second straight quarter. Both stocks advanced. Spirit Airlines shares dropped a day after it cut its forecast for the rest of the year. In Europe, the Iran nuclear deal and Greek debt deal drove stocks to a fifth day of gains. New concerns the economy may be slowing down. The latest retail sales report down 0.3% in June, the weakest reading since February. May also shifted downward. The core rate, which usually takes auto, sales, gas, and food, also dropped. An increase had been anticipated. The news is surprising given that consumer confidence is at elevated levels and consumer savings are at a multi-year high. Carrie Leahy, economist Decision Economics, have this to say.
The overall tone of spending at the mall is at best so-so. So once again, consumers have lots of good reasons to be shopping more actively than they are. Oil prices are down. The job market is strong. You can question whether or not we're producing good jobs, meaning high-paying jobs, quote unquote. And wages are starting to rise. But at the moment, consumers remain very cautious about the outlook.
For example, clothing store sales declined 1.5%, the largest drop since September of 2014. The data comes on the heels of June's discouraging jobs report, as well as a sharp drop in business confidence. Investors will now turn to Fed Chair Janet Yellen's take on the economy. She speaks on Capitol Hill on Wednesday. Varied results from two of the U.S. largest banks kicking off the earnings season. J.P. Morgan Chase startled Wall Street by raising quarterly profit 5% despite a drop in revenue. It achieved that by cutting costs. The nation's largest bank cut mortgage banking costs and legal expenses, and it has been reportedly cutting down on staffing. As expected, revenue dropped but smashed analysts' expectations. Fixed income trading revenue decreased sharply. The downturn in bond trading markets last month is predicted to hurt trading results at other banks too. On the plus side, J.P. Morgan was also able to grow investment banking revenue. RBC Capital Markets analyst Gerard Cassidy said, overall, the quarter was generally strong with the consumer and community bank leading the performance. J.P. Morgan remains in making headway on cutting expenses and simplifying its businesses. An opposite result at Wells Fargo. Profit dropped for the second straight quarter as costs increased, even though the bank managed to lift revenue. Like Morgan, it boosted provisions for credit losses. Its revenue advanced across the board. The bank wrote more home loans in the quarter, but applications shrunk. The nation's largest mortgage lender, Wells, is seen as a barometer for the housing market, and the housing business typically strengthens in the spring quarter. Shares of Wells Fargo dropped in early trading. JP Morgan shares went up. New Yorkers walking down a street in Brooklyn were shocked when a building suddenly collapsed, raining debris down on unsuspecting pedestrians. The structure was vacant at the time, and police say only a few people received minor injuries. The collapse was observed by bystander Barbara Marcel Brown.
I was walking down the street right here, and I got maybe like right here, and I just heard a big kaboom, and I was like, oh wow, I see a lot of smoke. And I'm looking, they heard a lot of noise. There was a lot of noise, a big, and all, you couldn't really see, you really couldn't see. So I saw people running, and then you saw the debris coming inside the street right there. And I was praying to God nobody was inside the building, but basically that's what really happened. The building fell over here. It was an old building, you know, they're doing construction over here.
A nearby building, which was occupied, was evacuated. Julie Sun, a nearby resident, had this to say.
I was in my building, I was drifting off to sleep, kind of, and then I felt this shake and this really loud noise and people screaming.
The four-story building was home to a beauty supply store until last year. The fire department said it was thought to have been scheduled for demolition. Talk about a tough crowd. Grammy winner Brandy Norwood recorded herself singing in a New York City subway, but obtained little attention from her fellow passengers. The singer posted the video on her YouTube account, Forever Brandy. It displayed Brandy singing in the middle of the train, being obviously ignored by everyone else. At one point, the singer asked the crowd, "What do you all thought of that? You all thought that was cool? Hello? Nobody heard me singing? Nobody cares?" She finally got a response from one passenger who gave her some advice. More than 9 years after its send-off, a U.S. spacecraft sailed past Pluto on Tuesday, concluding a 3 billion-mile journey to the solar system's furthest reaches. The craft flew by the distant dwarf planet at 7:49 a.m. after reaching a region beyond Neptune called the Kuiper Belt that was discovered in 1992. The achievement is the combination of a 50-year effort to explore the solar system. Pluto has turned out to be an extraordinarily complex and interesting world. Of course it would be. That was never a certainty. But now for the very first time we know that, said John Grunsfeld, NASA's Associate Administrator for Science from the Mission Control Center at Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory. Final confirmation that New Horizons passed some 7,800 miles from Pluto was anticipated at 8:53 p.m. The spacecraft is so far from Earth that radio signals traveling at the speed of light take about 4.5 hours to reach Earth. For several hours following closest approach, the miniature nuclear-powered probe, which is about the size of a baby grand piano, will look back at Pluto, now backlit by the sun, to study its atmosphere utilizing radio signals beamed from Earth as a probe. Scientists have many questions about Pluto, which, when New Horizons launched in 2006, was still considered the solar system's 9th planet. It was downgraded to the status of dwarf planet following the discovery of another Pluto-like ice and rock worlds orbiting beyond Neptune in the Kuiper Belt. The objects are thought to be remains from the formation of the solar system 4.6 billion years ago. To help celebrate the birthdays of 4 cheetah cubs, the San Diego Zoo threw a wild party. The cubs named Refu, Wagasa, Pumzika, and Mahala turned 1-year-old on July 13th. Their mother, Addison, was there to also celebrate. Paula Augustus, senior keeper at the San Diego Zoo's Cheetah Breeding Center, had this to say. we celebrated the Cubs' first birthday by providing them ice cakes that were made by our forage warehouse department. The ice cakes were like no other, each made with frozen layers of blood and chicken broth, and with the word "one" written in ground meat. No sibling rivalry here. Each of the 4 Cheetah Cubs had their very own birthday treat. We'll be right back after this commercial break.